They used to question every choice you made until you stopped answering. Now your silence speaks louder than their approval ever could. It starts with something so small you almost miss it, the simple act of explaining yourself. You do it without thinking. When someone questions your choice, your timing, your dream, you start talking, filling the air with reasons, hoping they will understand. You tell yourself it is harmless, even kind, that being transparent is the right thing to do. But underneath that explanation, there is fear. The fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being judged, the fear of losing approval. And that fear is the quiet place where power begins to slip away. Because when you explain yourself too much, you are not just sharing information, you are asking for permission. Every explanation tells the world something about your position. It says that you believe they have the right to question you. It says that their opinion matters more than your certainty. It says you need to be seen as right to feel safe. You think you are making things clear, but what you are really doing is handing them control over your story. The one who explains is trying to close the gap between how they see themselves and how others see them. The one who does not explain has no such gap to close. That is the quiet difference between insecurity and command. When you try to justify your actions, you put yourself on trial in a court that does not even exist. The people you are explaining to are not judges, yet you treat them like they are. You keep talking, trying to fix how they see you, not realizing that every word you add makes you smaller in their eyes. The more you explain, the more you sound like you are trying to escape guilt. Even when you are innocent, you look defensive. Even when you are right, you look unsure. Power does not live in explanation, it lives in composure. The person who can stay silent when questioned appears unshakable. The one who answers every challenge appears nervous. You can feel it in a meeting, in an argument, in a relationship. The moment someone starts explaining themselves, the room shifts. The listener gains power, and the speaker loses it. That is the trap. You think you are clearing the air, but you are really showing that you care too much about their judgment. It is not about becoming cold or distant. It is about choosing when your voice is worth using. When you stop explaining, you start sending a new message, one that says, "I know who I am. I don't need to convince anyone." Silence begins to feel stronger than words. People start reading your calm as confidence. They lean in. They wonder what gives you that certainty. And that wonder is where respect begins. Every time you hold back an unnecessary explanation, you build quiet power piece by piece. Because the truth is simple, the world stops questioning those who no longer explain. It questions itself instead. Most people explain because they are afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being seen in the wrong light, afraid of losing acceptance. It starts early, when you learn that approval feels like safety. You want to be liked, you want to be understood, you want others to think you are kind and fair. But approval is not something you own, it is something given by others. And anything that must be given can also be taken away. When you depend on that, you build your confidence on a foundation that can collapse at any moment. You start measuring your worth by how many people agree with you, instead of how much you trust yourself. That is the psychology of weakness, a quiet dependency that grows stronger every time you explain yourself. Each time you justify what you did or why you did it, you're really saying, "I need you to see me in a certain way." You want them to believe you are good or right or reasonable. But the moment you need that belief, you are no longer free. You become a performer in someone else's play, following their script instead of your own. The people who hold power do not ask for understanding. They create it. They do not chase approval, they command it. They understand that mystery is stronger than proof, because proof can be argued, but mystery keeps people guessing. And when people are guessing, they give you space, they respect your boundaries, they imagine strength you may not even have to show. Weakness lives in the need to be understood. It makes you talk too much, explain too much, reveal too much. It makes you rush to fill the silence, to soften every edge, to make sure no one thinks badly of you. But strong people let others think what they want. They know that silence does not make them small, it makes them unreadable. And unreadable people are hard to attack. When you stop explaining, you stop handing others the tools they could use against you. You stop feeding their judgment with your own nervous energy. It takes practice to resist the urge to explain. Your mind will whisper that people will think you are cold, that they will misjudge you. that they will walk away. Let them. What they think is not your problem. It is their projection. The more you detach from needing approval, the more stable you become. Your emotions stop swinging with every comment, every look, every question. You begin to move from reaction to control. That shift changes everything. Powerful people are not cruel, they are composed. They do not waste words trying to be liked, because they understand that being liked is not the same as being respected. They trade explanation for presence. They let their quiet confidence do the talking. When you stop explaining, you stop begging to be seen, and instead you start being noticed. People feel it without knowing why. You become less predictable, more magnetic. That is when the balance turns. What once made you seek approval now makes others seek yours. Most people grow up believing the world is supposed to be fair. They are taught that if they are honest, kind, and clear, they will be understood. So when conflict comes, they explain themselves. They believe that if others could just see their heart, see their reasons, everything would make sense. But life doesn't work that way. Fairness is not a law of nature. It is an emotional wish. It makes people feel safe to think that truth always wins, that being clear will protect them. Yet in reality, the world does not reward fairness. It rewards strength. And strength is rarely seen in people who spend their time explaining. You think explaining makes things fair because you want everyone to play by the same rules. You want balance, respect, and equality. But power does not live in equal ground. Power lives in hierarchy, in perception, in presence. The more you try to explain, the more you lower yourself to the level of those who question you. You might be right, you might be honest, you might even be kind. But when you start defending fairness, you surrender the advantage of fear. Fear, not fairness, is what holds respect in place. People don't obey rules because they believe in fairness. They obey because they believe in consequence. When you explain too much, you show that you are afraid of being seen as wrong. You try to clear the air to balance the scales, but every word you say tells others that their opinion has power over you. You are trying to restore fairness in a world that is built on advantage. The strong understand this. They don't try to convince people that they deserve respect. They act in a way that makes respect the only possible response. They don't say, "I'm not wrong." They say nothing and let others question themselves. Silence, when it comes from calm authority, changes the air in a room faster than any speech ever could. The illusion of fairness keeps people trapped in small arguments, always trying to prove they were right, always hoping for validation that never comes. But those who hold real power play a different game. They don't explain their intent, they define it. They don't debate, they decide. Fairness is a comfort for those who fear rejection. Authority is the comfort of those who know they don't need approval. The world doesn't follow the fairest person. It follows the person who appears most certain. The moment you stop defending fairness, you start earning respect. People may not agree with you, but they start watching you differently. They sense that you are not easily moved, that you don't need to be understood to keep your ground, and that unsettles them. Because when you no longer argue for fairness, you step out of their control. You stop being someone who pleads for balance, and you become someone who defines it. Fairness is a myth, but presence is real. And presence, when grounded in silence and certainty, makes the world bend without you ever having to ask. Power often hides in what is not said. Most people rush to fill silence, to explain, to clarify, to make sure no space is left for doubt. But the truth is that silence has more influence than explanation ever will. The strongest sentence is the one that ends early, the one that makes others lean in, wondering what you meant. The most powerful answer is the one that never arrives. When you stop filling the air, people start filling it for you. They begin to imagine your reasons, your thoughts, your intentions, and the mind, uncomfortable with uncertainty, always fills the blanks upward. It assumes depth where there is quiet, strength where there is control, confidence where there is calm. When you say less, every word you do say becomes heavier. It carries weight. People listen differently because they know your silence is not emptiness, it is choice. The fewer words you spend, the more expensive they become. The average person talks to be understood, but the powerful person speaks only to create direction. The difference is that one needs attention, while the other commands it. Silence is not the absence of expression, it is the presence of discipline. It shows that you are not desperate to be known, that you are comfortable letting others wonder. The power of omission is not about pretending to be mysterious. It is about understanding the psychology of space. When you leave gaps, people rush to fill them, not with your weakness but with their imagination. They assign meaning, they build stories, they make assumptions. Some will think you are confident, others will think you are dangerous, but almost no one will think you are weak. That is because mystery makes people cautious. They study you more carefully. They measure their words around you. They hesitate before crossing you. All of that comes from saying less, not more. Most people ruin their strength by explaining their silence. They break the spell by adding one word too many. They try to make sure others don't misunderstand, but in doing so, they erase the very thing that made them powerful. The world does not admire those who are easy to read. It admires those who can sit quietly in a storm and say nothing, while everyone else scrambles to speak. There is confidence in restraint. There is dominance in calm. When you learn to stop talking when the point has already landed, you will notice how people begin to work harder to reach you. They start analyzing your expressions, your pauses, your tone. They start valuing your presence more because your words are no longer free. You have turned scarcity into influence. The secret is to trust the silence. Trust that what is left unsaid carries more force than anything you could explain. In a world that rewards noise, your quiet becomes gold. Speak only when your words can shift the room. Everything else, let the silence say for you. When someone questions you or mocks you, your body reacts before your mind does. The heart speeds up, the throat tightens, the words rise ready to defend. You want to fix the misunderstanding, to make them see your truth, to prove that they got you wrong. But that reaction, as natural as it feels, is emotional, not strategic. It is the reflex of someone who fears being misjudged. The stronger move is not to react, but to remain still. Detachment is not about ignoring the world. It is about mastering yourself so completely that no one else can pull you off balance. It is the art of allowing others to misread you without feeling the need to correct them. The truth is, most people's opinions are temporary. What they say about you today will shift tomorrow. If you spend your energy chasing every misunderstanding, you will live exhausted, always explaining, always adjusting. Detachment means trusting that time reveals what words cannot. You don't argue, you outlast. You let your consistency become your answer. Over time, silence speaks louder than self-defense ever could. Those who rush to justify themselves show they need to be believed. Those who stay calm prove they don't. Calmness is not weakness. It is control in its purest form. It shows that you are not moved by every gust of emotion around you. It shows that your self-worth doesn't depend on anyone's approval. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain still, it creates confusion. They expected a reaction, a fight, an explosion. Instead, they face a wall of quiet composure. And that quietness unsettles them. They start questioning themselves. They burn through their own energy trying to find your weakness, and when they fail, they expose theirs. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. You see the game being played, but you choose not to join it. You understand that every reaction costs energy, and not every battle deserves your attention. You learn to keep your peace even when others lose theirs. You stop trying to control how you are seen and focus on how you stand. The more you practice it, the more you realize that peace is not given. It is taken by those strong enough to protect it. People will always misread your silence. Some will think you are arrogant, others will think you are afraid, but the truth is that you are simply in control. You are not avoiding conflict, you are mastering it by refusing to feed it. Stillness is your frame, and the longer you hold it, the more their power burns out against your calm. You become the mirror in which their chaos reflects back at them. They reveal themselves while you reveal nothing. That is true detachment, the kind that does not distance you from people, but frees you from their control. When you can stand calmly in the storm, not needing to be understood, not needing to be right, you have already won the only battle that matters, the one within. When someone attacks you, your first instinct is to defend yourself. You want to explain, to show them they're wrong, to prove that you're not what they say you are. But that instinct gives them exactly what they want, your attention, your energy, your balance. The wiser move is not to defend, but to redirect. You don't meet their words head on, you let them collapse under their own weight. This is the art of reframing, the ability to take an accusation and quietly turn it into a mirror. You don't argue, you let their words reveal who they are. When someone says you're arrogant, the weak answer is to say, I'm not, I just care about results. The strong answer is to smile slightly and say, confidence tends to offend the uncertain. You didn't defend yourself, you redefined the frame. Now the room sees the accuser as insecure, not you as guilty. When they call you manipulative, you don't fight it, you respond. Only the controllable complain about control. Suddenly their statement becomes an admission of their own weakness. When they say you're distant, you don't soften or apologize. You reply, peace looks cold to those addicted to chaos. And in that single line, you've made them question their own behavior. Reframing is not aggression, it's precision. You don't shout, you don't explain, you simply guide the attention of the moment away from their attack and toward their motive. The reason this works is because most accusations are emotional, not factual. They come from envy, insecurity, or frustration. When you defend, you treat those emotions as truth. When you reframe, you expose them. You're not fighting the person, you're holding up a mirror and letting them see what they're really showing. This skill takes practice, but once learned, it changes every interaction. Instead of getting dragged into emotional debates, you stay above them. You turn what was meant to wound you into proof of your composure. People will notice that you never seem rattled, that you never argue, that your calm responses make others unravel. That's when you shift from being a target to being a force. Because the more someone tries to attack you and fails, the more everyone else starts to see the imbalance. You don't win through words, you win through posture. Reframing also protects your energy. Defending yourself drains you, but redirecting feeds you. You begin to see attacks not as threats, but as opportunities to reveal character. You learn to respond with short, calm sentences that close the conversation instead of feeding it. The less you react, the more powerful you look. And the more powerful you look, the less people try to provoke you. Eventually, your calm becomes your reputation. People will think twice before testing you because they know that whatever they throw your way will come back sharper and smarter. In the end, reframing is not about proving you're right. It's about proving you can't be touched. You don't explain, you transform, you let others expose their emotions while you stay still in your own certainty. And when you master that, you stop being the one accused and become the one quietly in control. In every room, people fight to be seen. They raise their voices, share opinions, tell stories, and fill every second with sound. They believe that speaking equals power, that presence must be proven through volume. But something strange happens when you stop joining that noise. When you go quiet, truly quiet, the room begins to shift in ways most people never notice. Eyes start to turn toward you, voices soften. The energy begins to bend in your direction. It's not because you've done anything dramatic, it's because silence is rare. In a world addicted to explanation and noise, silence feels like control. It feels intentional, and that makes it powerful. Silence is not emptiness, it's weight. When you speak less, every glance, every movement, every pause starts to mean more. People begin to study you instead of overlooking you. They wonder what you're thinking, why you're calm, why you don't rush to fill the space. They can't help it. The human mind fears uncertainty, and silence creates it. When you don't give people an answer, they start building one on their own. And the guesses they make usually rise higher than the truth. They assume you are confident, disciplined, or dangerous. All because you didn't speak when they expected you to. The person who holds silence does not fight for attention, they attract it. It's a quiet kind of dominance that pulls everything toward it. The loud talkers spend their energy. The quiet one collects it. People begin to mirror your calm without even realizing it. Their tone drops, their pace slows, and they start measuring their words. That's the invisible pull of silence. It creates gravity. You are no longer one more voice in the crowd. You become the still center the room starts to orbit around. Silence also protects you. The more you say, the more people have to use against you. The less you speak, the more uncertain they become. You stop revealing what matters to you. You stop feeding gossip. You stop explaining. Every time you stay quiet when others expect a reaction, you're training them to respect your presence, because silence signals composure, and composure signals strength. The person who can remain still while others scramble holds the real advantage. When you master silence, you stop chasing validation. You no longer feel the need to prove that you belong, because your calm already says it for you. You start controlling the tempo of every space you enter. Conversations move around you instead of through you. People wait for your response, and when it comes, they listen. That is what happens when silence becomes part of your power. True silence is not the absence of words. It's the presence of control. It's the discipline to withhold your reaction until it matters. It's knowing that the person who speaks first often loses, and the one who waits owns the frame. When you stop fighting to be heard, you start being felt. That's how silence turns into social gravity, quiet but undeniable, steady enough to pull the whole room toward you. When you stop explaining yourself, something interesting begins to happen. People stop arguing with you. They stop trying to correct you or question your choices. Instead, they start wondering. They start guessing. They start talking among themselves, trying to fill the space your silence left behind. In that silence, a new kind of power grows, the power of stillness. You no longer need to defend your name or clarify your intentions. Your calm becomes its own language, and people start to treat it like a mystery. They begin to build stories around you, half true, half imagined, but all of them shaped by your refusal to be ordinary. Stillness makes people uncomfortable because it removes the usual rhythm of reaction. Most people are used to noise, used to instant replies and emotional responses. When you do not react, they start reading deeper. They interpret every pause, every look, every move. They begin to think you know something they don't, and the longer you hold that calm, the stronger it becomes. Your silence turns into an aura that people can feel before you speak. It's no longer about what you say, but what you don't. Over time, this becomes reputation. People start to describe you with words like composed, unreadable, intimidating, disciplined. They start to tell others how you don't talk much, but when you do, everyone listens. They start to repeat your smallest gestures as if they carry meaning. That is what stillness does. It multiplies your presence. You become something larger than a person. You become a symbol of control, the kind of figure people mention with quiet respect. The goal is not to be understood, it is to be felt. When you live with composure long enough, people stop testing you. They stop assuming you can be provoked because they have already learned that nothing shakes you. They stop doubting your ability because your steadiness suggests power that doesn't need to be proven. They stop gossiping about you and instead they start mythologizing you. You become the story people tell when they talk about restraint, the example they bring up when they talk about control. It's not about fame. It's about presence. The beauty of stillness is that it creates space for imagination, and imagination always works in your favor when you're calm. People assume you are capable of more than you show. They assume you're planning something, or that your silence hides strategy. And that assumption becomes your invisible armor. It protects you better than any defense could, because it makes people cautious. They treat you with respect, not because you demand it, but because your stillness makes them unsure of what you're capable of. In the end, stillness doesn't mean being quiet for the sake of quiet. It means being so secure that you no longer need to prove anything. Your silence carries weight. Your presence speaks louder than your voice ever could. You no longer chase understanding, because the world already understands one thing, that you cannot be shaken. And that alone makes you untouchable. You win the moment you stop trying to make everyone understand you. You win the second you stop explaining, stop proving, stop chasing fairness or clarity. Because when you stop trying to be understood, you start to be seen. The truth is, most people are not listening to understand, they are listening to judge. They want to measure you, to place you in a box, to decide if you deserve their approval. When you stop giving them explanations, you take that power away. You are no longer asking to be accepted. You are defining yourself through calm, unshakable presence. That is the real win, the one that needs no proof. The need to explain is a quiet hunger for validation. It comes from the belief that being right will keep you safe. But safety built on other people's opinions is never real. The more you chase clarity, the more you reveal your fear of being misunderstood. The more you defend yourself, the more you remind the world that its opinion matters to you. Power begins when that need ends. When you no longer need to explain, you start controlling how others perceive you. People will always misunderstand you. They will talk, assume, invent stories. But that noise has no weight if you don't give it attention. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. When you no longer explain, your presence starts doing the talking. You become the calm one in a world full of reaction. You walk through chaos without explaining your calm, and that unsettles people. They can't figure you out, and so they respect you, sometimes even fear you. You no longer play defense because you've realized that the game ends the moment you stop playing. The less you say, the more the world fills the silence for you. They begin to imagine strength where there's restraint, wisdom where there's quiet, certainty where there's peace. You become the mystery they can't stop trying to solve. People will gossip about you. They will question your motives. They will accuse you of arrogance or coldness. That's fine. Let them. Every word they throw at you falls flat when you don't respond. Every accusation dies in the silence it can't provoke. You don't owe anyone an explanation for who you are, what you want, or how you move. The more you accept that, the freer you become. You are no longer reacting to life. You are shaping it with presence. The noise of others becomes background to your focus. You no longer prove your worth because your composure becomes proof of it. Power doesn't come from explaining your truth. It comes from living it. You stop proving, you start becoming, you stop seeking acceptance, you start inspiring respect. You move from chasing understanding to commanding perception. That's when the win happens, quietly, without applause, without announcement, just a steady sense that nothing outside of you can touch your certainty. You don't tell the world who you are anymore. You let it figure it out, and by the time it does, it's already too late to doubt you. Maybe this video helped you see yourself, or someone you know, in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments. And if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.